Thanks everybody for coming out. This is awesome for the Acala team and I think everyone else to actually be physically with everybody in person, doing an event where you can actually talk about crypto with people outside of something like Twitter or Telegram. It's just awesome to be here with everybody. Appreciate you taking the time. I met somebody who drove in from Iowa. I flew in from Sao Paulo, Brazil. We've got a teammate from Atlanta, New York, LA. So we're excited to be here with you guys in Chicago. We're going to try to keep it, my part, pretty short. I have too many slides that I could spend too much time on. But I'll just run through a little bit of background on Polkadot and Kusama, and then Acala and Karura that we're building right now and launching right now. Then we'll have DeFi Alliance and Cumberland come up and answer questions, tell us a little bit about what they do, and then we can go back to having drinks and snacks. So. My name is Dan Reecer. I'm from the Acala team. I previously was at Web3 Foundation and got to launch Kusama and Polkadot, and have been spending a lot of time now at Acala launching Karura, which is our network on Kusama, and then getting ready to launch Acala on Polkadot here, hopefully pretty soon. I'm just going to go in first, starting with the results that we just saw from Karura this week. Brett and I were up at 4:30 in the morning on Tuesday, watching the launch with the team in New Zealand. They were cheersing with whiskey and champagne as we were cheersing with water and coffee. But it's been a crazy last few weeks doing the first ever crowd loan on Kusama that I'll explain how that works. And a pretty fantastic result. And I think some of you in the room even were contributors to the crowd loan for Karura. Who in the room is not aware of how Polkadot and Kusama works? Because I just want to get a feel for the room. So 1, 2. Okay, so I'll keep it quick, but I will explain. So Polkadot and Kusama. Polkadot was the first project to start. This was founded by a guy named Gavin Wood, who built Ethereum. He invented the Ethereum virtual machine. He invented the Solidity programming language. And then I think it was around 2014, 2015, decided to start Polkadot, which is this multi-chain ecosystem instead of a single blockchain. And I'll get into some of the details around what the network does. Gavin, I mentioned. Rob, a young, brilliant guy who co-founded Polkadot with Gavin, as well as Peter Shaban. So this is what Polkadot looks like. This graphic I love because it really helps explain what Polkadot does. Each of these little squares here is a blockchain, and these are all going to be connected into one kind of connected universe. And each of these blockchains can be customized for a specific purpose. So in Acala and Karura's case, where we have customized our blockchain at the chain level specifically for DeFi. So all the applications being built on Acala, including our own, are optimized for DeFi. And the same will go for any other chain. So you've got identity chains, you've got gaming chains, whatever you might have, but they're all going to be customized for that purpose. These will also be bridged to other networks like Ethereum and Bitcoin to bring that liquidity into Polkadot as well as Kusama. And here's a few other things. One of the most important, people always ask what's the difference between Cosmos and Polkadot, and one of the biggest differences is the security setup of Polkadot. So with Polkadot, you actually earn your right in through an auction that I'll explain. And by launching on the network, you get to inherit this network of validators that are already running Polkadot. So we don't actually have to go out and recruit our own set of validators for Acala. We just inherit the ones that are already on Polkadot. So it saves a lot of work on our part as a development team, and we get to focus on building our chain and our apps instead of focusing on building a validator set. The other really important and underappreciated aspect is self-upgradability. So over time, we can continue to, the team at Parity and Web3 can continue to upgrade Polkadot repeatedly, so the chain is consistently improving over time. Unlike more legacy chains like Bitcoin and Ethereum, that like what you got when it launched is what you have forever. So that I think is going to lead to quite a bit of exponential innovation, both on the Polkadot level as well as on the layer 1 parachain level, where you can consistently upgrade your chain. Kusama is confusing for people new to the ecosystem because it's a new concept that Gavin and the team created. It's basically a step in between testnet and a high value mainnet like Polkadot. I made this just to show an easier example. So traditionally, in the Ethereum ecosystem or any other traditional crypto ecosystem, you would obviously test on a testnet, but as soon as you move to mainnet, you don't truly know what's going to happen when you get into a real value environment. So if something goes wrong in DeFi, for example, on Ethereum, it could be pretty catastrophic to whoever's using that or building on that. So what the team, Gavin and the team built was a step in between a testnet and moving all the way. I used like the restaurant dollars, $4 and $3 here. So whenever anything's launching to Polkadot, they'll build it and launch it on testnet, test it out, but it's not actually in a real value environment. Then it'll move to Kusama with real value. So you can actually see, does everything work? Is there anything that needs to be tweaked or changed before it goes to Polkadot? And we're actually seeing this right now with the crowd loans. We've found bugs. We've been testing a lot on testnet, but we've seen a lot of positives, and we've seen some bugs that we could fix on Kusama before it ever made it to Polkadot. So what that allows is that once things get to Polkadot, it should be pretty close to perfect because we've already seen it in that live environment. So that was a lot of information already on Polkadot and Kusama. Hopefully that helps the guys that it's new for. Now let's go up a level. So Acala is being built on Polkadot as what we're calling the DeFi hub of Polkadot. And then Karura is being built on Kusama, which what I just explained about Polkadot and Kusama is the same kind of mentality that we have for Karura and Acala. So everything that we build, all of our products, our financial kind of parameters that we're doing, our stable coin, everything that we do will first launch on, of course, on testnet, but then go to Karura. We'll see how it works in reality, and then it'll move to Acala next. So these two networks will continue to operate in parallel and make each other better, just like Polkadot and Kusama do. These are the founders that I wish were here, but they're all halfway across the world in Auckland, New Zealand for Rui Tao, Betty, and Brian, and then Fuyao's in Shanghai, China. Incredible team. It's honestly the best team I've ever worked on. They're extremely smart, extremely hardworking, and an absolute kind of pleasure to be around, which I know the team can agree with. Some of our backers, there's actually a few in the room, so it's great to see them and meet them in person. And of course, we went through the accelerator at the DeFi Alliance, which is based here in Chicago, as well as the Berkeley Blockchain Accelerator. So at the Acala level, this is also something new that is hard to explain because it's not a concept that is, from my understanding, has existed before. Because we're building a blockchain, a layer 1 blockchain equivalent to Solana, Ethereum, what have you. But we've also built and launched our own set of applications on our own chain. So we can show what it's like to build and what an example could look like of what can be built on our chain. So this is a diagram to kind of explain that. You've got the Polkadot level that I just explained. We're launching on Polkadot to get the security of Polkadot and the ability to exchange data and information with other parachains on Polkadot. But one of the key differences in what I mentioned about how we've optimized this for DeFi, we do have an EVM with a little bit of tweaks. Brian said yesterday that we're 99% compatible with Ethereum, not 100, because we are optimizing for substrate, the kind of the next wave of development versus inheriting all the challenges that come with the EVM. So this allowed us to do things like bring your own gas. So when you come into Acala, maybe you bring ETH from Ethereum or wrapped Bitcoin, your first transaction can be paid in ETH or in Bitcoin. You don't have to go find out what ACA is and find ACA and send it to your wallet like some of you may have done in Ethereum. It's just boom, you're in and you can pay fees with whatever's in your account. So that should help take some burden off the users. Another thing is on-chain scheduling. So if you think about financial use cases on Acala, you could basically remove the need to trust third parties or APIs for scheduling transactions to happen, like in a payment system or what have you. But our three core products are the Acala DEX, similar to Uniswap, Liquid's DOT staking, which I'm probably most excited about, which is the ability to stake DOT and get a liquid version of that you can actually use. Right now, there's billions of dollars in DOT that are staked and useless because they're kind of just staked and locked. LDOT is going to be kind of mind-blowing, especially when you think about the integration we're building with Compound. We're going to be bringing DOT and LDOT over to Compound's chain. There's going to be so much liquidity unlocked, which means so much utility that we'll be able to stream through the ecosystem. AUSD is the Acala dollar, so similar to DAI, this is a multi-collateral stablecoin that we felt was necessary to become kind of the de facto stablecoin of the Polkadot ecosystem. And a few other things, governance, treasury, oracles, these could all take hour-long presentations. But going up a level, we've built applications on our own chain that have already launched or beginning to launch on Karura and will launch on Polkadot. And these leverage the DEX for swaps. These leverage liquid staking and earning through like liquidity providing in the DEX, similar to what you may have done with Uniswap. Along the same lines, there will be other applications built on top of Acala as well, where we have an integration that's kind of rolling out over the coming months with Current. So Current is going to be integrating with another application that we're building on Acala. This is a really cool project. It's a fintech company in the US based in New York. Brett and I actually just got to go visit them a week or two ago. They have 3 million customers on a fintech app. So what they're doing is savings accounts, simple savings accounts for millennial, young-aged people, and probably around a 0.5% interest rate for a savings account, which is like good in the US for people that aren't in crypto. But what they're going to be able to do, they haven't finalized what the product can be called or kind of the regulatory aspects of it. But as an example, what it could be, as a customer, you open the app one day and they offer you, maybe it's called a savings account, maybe it's called yield or something, but they don't need to know that what's really happening is all these dollars are being taken on the off-ramp, converted into crypto, sent into this app that's being built by the Acala team on top of the Acala platform, which is a yield engine that integrates with Compound. It leverages DOT staking. It generates yield for these real dollars for customers who don't even really need to know that that is going on the back end. And then the dollars will flow back into fiat and then into the accounts of those people on the Current app. Pretty incredible. I'm excited for that to launch. We don't need to spend time on these. This is just a look at what the UI looks like for the DEX, for liquid staking. And then Karura is the exact same thing as Acala, except for it's centered around the Kusama ecosystem, of course, and then the KSM token instead of DOT. So this is what we've been spending a lot of time on recently, launching Karura on Kusama. And right now we're working through the kind of the rollout plan for getting like the KAR token even liquid, transferable. We will be spinning up the DEX, the stablecoin, pretty soon. And then there's some technical dependencies for LKSM on XCM that we're just waiting on the parity team to develop. But pretty soon, all this stuff will be live and usable on Kusama. This is the Karura app. And I just wanted to bring us back to what I showed you before with why Kusama. And then this helps me explain why would we run Karura and Acala at the same time? And why do we plan on continuing to run these things in parallel? Because just like Kusama and Polkadot, we will run things on testnet. We'll move it to this experimental network or this innovation network, as I prefer, where we can test out the apps. We can test out things like financial parameters with Gauntlet and others. And then it moves to, finally moves to Acala and Polkadot. So this is the last thing I wanted to cover because this is kind of the more current thing that's going on right now. And I've been talking about it for months, trying to explain to people how big of a deal this was. But the amount of KSM that we were able to garner from the community, I think, was a huge eye-opener to the media, to other ecosystems, because 5% of the KSM supply is nothing to ignore. So how many people in the room have heard of parachain slot auctions or know how they work? So I think I guess that was the wrong question. How many don't? Okay, cool, there's a few. So I'll just run through this very, very quickly. What this is, I've tried to explain this since I'm home seeing my family, to my parents and my family members who don't understand anything about crypto. It's kind of like selling a house in an auction. And obviously everyone going there in a traditional auction comes with their own checkbook, and they're going to bid as high as they possibly can against everyone else with whatever that person can afford for their bid. That's option one for the parachain slot auction, trying to win a slot on Polkadot or on Kusama. Option two is going back to that example. Imagine you're going to this auction, but you can bring, in our case, 20,000 of your friends behind you who are all helping you with that bid for the house. So they're all giving you, loaning you some type of capital that you are then able to use in that auction against the other people in the auction. Of course, there would be some kind of agreement between the 20,000 people behind you and you for what they might get in return for that loan. But then at the end of, say, a year, those people would all get their loan back. It's exactly what happens with crowd loans on Kusama and on Polkadot. There were 20,000 people, around 20,000, 15 on-chain, and then probably 5 or so thousand from exchanges. But these people were all supporters of Karura, and they contributed KSM in return for what ended up being at least 19 KAR, our native token, per each KSM. And those tokens didn't go to us. We aren't able to touch any of those. Those were all locked as our stake or as our bid for that slot. So totally new concept, totally different spin on like what we saw with ICOs for raising money back in the day. Teams were able to just spin up a white paper and a website and take the money and run. In this case, like I said, we don't touch any of it, and people actually get their loan back at the end of 1 year in the case of Kusama, and on Polkadot it'll be 2 years. So this is where we are. So this is where we are right now. It's like, what is it, June 24th? So we're in the middle of the second auction. So Karura won the first auction. We are, like I said, in the process of launching. And then there's a couple teams that are kind of in the lead for the second auction. This will move to the third, fourth, and fifth. Over time, these are the first 5 slots. Over time, Kusama will scale up to 100 or more parachains. So that means 100 or more Ethereums or Solanas or Tezos all in one ecosystem, and the same thing on Polkadot, 100 or more. So this is just to show you what happened in the last couple weeks. So we opened up our crowd loan, which is like, hey, you can support us. And these KSM were coming to our crowd loan. They were also coming to other teams who were also competing in the auction. And then this is the actual auction. It was 7 days. There's a 2-day opening period, but during this 5-day ending period, there's a randomized point in time or a block that's chosen at the end. So our strategy was, let's be winning at all times so that we know we're going to win, because whatever block is chosen, you know you're going to win. The second auction right now is actually pretty close, so it's going to be interesting to see, like, one team is winning at one point in time, another team is winning at another. If it goes back and forth, that randomized block is really going to matter and be pretty exciting. So this crowd loan stayed open. People continued increasing by contributing more and more KSM. We ended up at 501,000 KSM. And this is what happened. So at the end of the auction, the Kusama network randomized and spun out a point in time, which, for example, is this green line. And then we won the auction, and there's a winning bid, but everything that was contributed, even after that randomized point in time, was locked in our crowd loan. So that was the 501. Oh, there's that slide I wanted. So this is right now. This is Polkadot.js. There's still, if any of you are like UI or any type of developer, Polkadot.js and the Polkadot.js extension, we have a lot of, there's a lot of improvements that can be done on the kind of UI and UX of that. I think there's a couple teams that are working on that. But it's a great tool for developers, and it's done a great job throughout the auction here. These are the current results. So you can see, like, Moon River has 166, Plasm has, or Shiden has 93. So these are all going for the next slot on Kusama. Last slide. This is one thing to just keep in mind that's pretty I guess pretty unknown. of course, there was the chance for people to contribute KSM to the crowd loan, but just like you may have seen on, like more recently on Polygon and on other networks, we're doing a liquidity mining program to help bring more liquidity to Karura when we launch. So for people providing liquidity to the DEX, taking out stablecoin loans, and then doing liquid KSM staking, there will be a massive amount. So 19% of the first year's circulating supply will come from liquidity mining. So great opportunity for people to come in and help get involved in the protocol itself. And if you want, so there's apps.acala.network is where you can actually go in and use this stuff. It's live on testnet. Apps.karura.network is going to be the domain for the Karura applications. So I encourage you to go to this website. In the top, there's a little testnet link, a testnet token link, so you can get testnet tokens and try out all of this stuff. And that is it. So thanks for sitting through this and giving me the time.